As I said, 70% of the time, people live in stress, and living in stress is living in survival.
I want you to write down 3 people. 3 people that when you hang out with them, you feel energized.
I even did this when I was overseas, when I was on deployment, when I was a combat leader.
Want to be happy? Build a life, not just a business. So today, let's live your best belief life and learn how to defeat stress. Also, if you want to know what Jocko Willink, Mel Robbins, Robin Sharma, and others have to say about building confidence, check my 254 series. It's free in the description below.
People want to know how to stop the laziness, and they want to know how to stop the procrastination.
And so stop resisting. I encourage you, stop resisting the natural flow of epic performance. Stop resisting the natural seasons of life.
You might want to get honest with yourself. Like, instead of doing this, I want to be a millionaire, I want to do this. Do you really? Because you can make it happen. You actually can. Look at all the idiots that are making money. You can make money.
Okay, let's kick it off with rule number 1. See your friends more with Mel Robbins.
It turns out that one of the best stress relievers on the planet is something that most of us don't ever do. And that is seek out time with friends when we feel totally stressed out. When you're doing twice as much work as you normally do, or you're feeling twice as much stress as you normally feel, studies at Harvard show that what you need is you need to see your friends twice as much. Now, Sean Anker is a really famous researcher and best-selling author at Harvard, and he studied this phenomenon. He looked at people that were stressed at schools and in call centers and in the military and in banks and in almost every single industry. What he discovered is that the most successful people, the people that were the best at selling, the people that were the most resilient, the people that had the best ability to deal with stress when times got tough were the ones that saw their friends the most. It was the people with the tightest social connections that had the ability to weather the storms that life throw at us. I want you to write down 3 people. 3 people that when you hang out with them, you feel energized. That when you have plans with them, you're excited about seeing them. When this video ends, reach out to them. That's right, pick up the phone, send them a text. I want you to invite them to do something. Go out to lunch, go for a walk in the woods, get a cup of coffee, go out to dinner. Even if you're not stressed out, I guarantee you at least one of the 3 people that you're going to reach out to needs you.
Rule number 2, turn stress on itself with Jocko Willink.
There's been thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of warriors that have been in very stressful situations and faced evil and faced death much worse than the situation I'm in or you're in that we might consider stressful. And I even did this when I was overseas, when I was on deployment, when I was a combat leader. I was feeling stress. And you know what? We took casualties and it was awful and it was heartbreaking. But there were other soldiers and warriors throughout time that have been in much worse situations. Gettysburg or Vicksburg or the Battle of the Bulge. And all those horrible situations, they prove really that humans can withstand almost unimaginable stress. Which meant to me that I could too. And you can. And the first step for me is doing that, taking that look to gain some perspective. And then in order to gain perspective, you got to do something that we already talked about. You've got to detach. You've got to detach from the problems or the stress that you're experiencing so that you can get that perspective of them. Now, there's a couple different types of stress. Now, if it's something that you can control that's causing you stress, well, why aren't you getting control of it? Now, there's also stress that's caused by things that you cannot control. And if you remember talking earlier about artillery and how horrible that was, and what made it so horrible was that there's no control over it. So if you can't control something and you can't get control of it, you have to at least embrace what you can. And I'm not saying you're going to embrace artillery shelling, but I'll tell you what, when it comes to things like artillery, or for us in Ramadi, was IEDs. And we could do everything we could do to mitigate that risk, but eventually there's only so much you can do, and you cannot completely eliminate it. But you can't control it, so why are you going to worry about it? Why are you going to stress about it? If there's something that's completely beyond your control, you've got to detach from it and not let yourself get stressed about it. And on top of that, if it's something that you can't control, how can you look at it in a different light? How can you see it in a way that you could actually take advantage of it? How can you take that stress and make it into some kind of ally? You know, the chaos of combat is something that I couldn't control, but I had to embrace it so I could try and figure out how to take advantage of it. So when it comes to stress, don't fight it. Turn it on itself and use it. Use it. Use it to make yourself sharper and more alert. And use it to make yourself think more and learn more and get better. And use that stress as a catalyst to make yourself better.
Rule number 3, meditate with Joe Dispenza.
As I said, 70% of the time, people live in stress, and living in stress is living in survival. Now, all organisms in nature can tolerate short-term stress. You know, a deer gets chased by a pack of coyotes. When it outruns the coyotes, it goes back to grazing and the event is over. And the definition of stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of balance, out of homeostasis. The stress response is what the body innately does to return itself back to order. So you're driving down the road, someone cuts you off, you jam on the brakes, you may give them the finger, and then you settle back down and the event is over and boom, now everything's back to normal. But what if it's not a predator that's waiting for you outside the cave, but what if it's your coworker sitting right next to you? And all day long, you're turning on those chemicals because they're pushing all your emotional buttons. When you turn on the stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease because no organism in nature can live in emergency mode for that extended period of time. It's a scientific fact that the hormones of stress downregulate genes and create disease, long-term effects. Human beings, because of the size of the neocortex, we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. We can think about our problems and turn on those chemicals. That means then our thoughts could make us sick. So if it's possible that our thoughts could make us sick, is it possible then our thoughts could make us well? And the answer is absolutely yes. So then, what are the emotions that are connected to survival? Let's name them. Anger, aggression, hostility, hatred, competition, fear, anxiety, worry, pain, suffering, guilt, shame, unworthiness, envy, jealousy. Those are all created by the hormones of stress. And psychology calls them normal human states of consciousness. I call those altered states of consciousness. So then we tend to remember those traumatic events more because in survival, you better be ready if it happens again. And when the survival gene is switched on, you could have 10 really great things that happen to you in your day. And you just have one bad thing that happens and you cannot take your attention off that unhappy thing because the survival gene is switched on. Many years ago, after the DNA helix was discovered by Watson and Crick, they said the blueprints of life, all diseases are created from genes. It turns out less than 5%, more like 1% of people on the planet are born with a genetic condition like type 1 diabetes or Tay-Sachs disease or sickle cell anemia. The other 95 to 99% are created by lifestyle and by choices. You can take two identical twins, exact same genome. One dies at 51, the other one dies at 85. Same gene, different environment. So all of a sudden they said, we lied. That was wrong. It's not genes that create disease. It's the environment that signals the gene that creates disease. Well, okay. But that's not the whole truth too, because you could have two people working side by side in the same factory. One gets cancer after being exposed to a carcinogenic for 25 years. Both working for 25 years, the other one has no cancer at all. So there must be some internal order that would cause one person to not get it while another one does. So is it possible then, if the environment signals the gene, and it does, and the end product of an experience in the environment is called an emotion, can you signal the gene ahead of the environment by embracing an elevated emotion? We've done the research on this. We've measured 7,500 different gene expressions in a group of people that came to an advanced event for 4 days. And we had them doing a seated meditation, a walking meditation, a laying down meditation, a standing meditation. And at the end of 4 days, just 4 days, the common 8 genes that were upregulated, 2 genes to suppress cancer cells and tumor growth, 2 genes for neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons in response to novel experiences and learning, the gene that signals stem cells to go to damaged areas and repair them, the gene for oxidative stress was upregulated. We started seeing all these genes that are very, very healthy to cause the body to flourish. Imagine if people were doing that for 3 months. We also measured telomeres, the little shoestrings on the end of DNA that tell us our biological age. We asked people to do the work, meditation, 5 out of 7 days for 60 days. Measure their telomeres that determine their biological age. 60 days later, 74% of the people lengthened their telomeres. 40% significant change. 20% a very remarkable change. That means that they got a little bit of their life back. If it had lengthened by 10%, they got 10% of their life back.
Rule number 4, do the Wim Hof method with Wim Hof.
I created a method. The components are breathing, mindset, and cold exposure. Gradual, non-forced cold exposure. And that's to optimize the mind-body connection.
Wim has figured out ways, namely through breath work and through exposure to cold, to take conscious control over aspects of his physiology that, for most people, they simply can't tune into and control.
The cold, my warm friend, it brings about a whole lot of more energy, and that together with breathing makes you so powerful. But then you lose your wife and it all rumbles down. 4 children I had with my wife, and I was to be with her forever. She was the love of my life. She died. She suicided. It's a black hole within yourself. It breaks your heart and you don't know why, but the train of a daily life is going on and you gotta catch up, otherwise you lose it. So I had to be there for my children. And yes, we created a new nest. My children made me survive in that time, but nature healed my wounds. The cold gave me a direct understanding of deeper breathing and how to heal a broken heart. Then I went and did all kinds of remarkable challenges. Apparently, they found it very remarkable and great and spectacular. So I came in contact with television. One after the other, they challenged me more. Hey, go swim 50 meters under the ice. Go swim 100 meters under the ice. Climb Mount Everest in shorts. That led up that the scientists became curious. Hey, what this man is doing is not possible physiologically.
The science of what Wim Hof method does is one of the primary interests of my lab now, because it is so powerful and it's been shown to be powerful in the immune system, and we believe it will also hold some real potential for treatment of neurologic diseases.
And this breathing technique brings you right into the deepest part of our physiology. Anybody can do it. So you become the alchemist of your own chemistry.
And rule number 5, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is control your awareness with Dandapani.
When I was growing up, I had met my guru when I was about 21, and I was going to join his monastic order, which was in Hawaii. I was at that time living in Western Australia and studying in university. And I remember in my last year of engineering, I was feeling extremely stressed. I had a thesis which I'd been working on for a year and a half that I needed to complete. In the next month, I had about 7 or 8 examinations that I had to pass in order to graduate as an engineer. I was the president of the youth group of our temple over there, the local temple over there, and we were organizing a lot of different events. And I was also dancing as part of a dance company that I was involved in, and they were also putting up a big show, so we were rehearsing almost every night. And I remember emailing my guru saying, Gurudev, I'm really stressed, I have all these things going on, and I'm stressed. He emailed me back, and I don't remember the exact words that he used, but he emailed me back and said, the reason you're stressed is because you don't keep your awareness on one thing at a time. And I'll be absolutely honest with you, ever since that day, I've never felt stressed anymore. And I know it's a very bold proclamation to make, but it's true. Because I clearly understood what he said to me at that point. Whenever I was dancing, I was thinking about my thesis. And when I was working on my thesis, I was thinking about the exams I had to do. When I was working on my exams, when I was studying for my exams, I was thinking about the youth group. And wherever I was thinking about something else. Anxiety comes because we allow awareness to drift away from the present moment and go into the future or into the past in an uncontrolled way. So the past and the future are not bad things as long as we indulge in them or we enter them with the aim to learn from them. But if we just allow awareness to travel into the past and into the future all the time, it creates anxiety. And we do that because we're afraid. Anxiety comes out of a sense of fear where we allow awareness to go into the future. We create a situation that hasn't happened. We bring it back into the present and start living it as it has already happened. You keep repeating the process over and over and over again. You build anxiety. I'm going to get sick. I'm going to get sick. You think in the future, what if I get sick? Then what happens? Oh my God, I'm going to get sick. And then you bring back the present and you start living that. 5 minutes later, you let your awareness go into the future and you think to yourself, I'm not going to get better, I'm going to get sick. And then you bring awareness back into the present again and you start worrying about it. You keep repeating this process over and over again and you build anxiety. So the way to overcome stress and anxiety is to really control where your awareness goes. Every time your awareness goes into the future or into the past in an uncontrolled way, bring it back to the present again. And just do this exercise. Be mindful of this throughout the entire day. Don't let your awareness go into the past or into the future in an uncontrolled way.
Now I've got a really special bonus clip with Robin Sharma on how to keep things in perspective that I really think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Let's move from just watching a video to taking action in your life or business. Here we go. Question number 1. Which of these 5 techniques will you apply to reduce the stress in your life? Number 2, how will you start right now, today, like right after this video, to take immediate action on it? And number 3, what will you commit to doing to turn this technique into a habit?
It's very easy to get seduced into making something small a lot larger than it is. And perspective simply reminds us to go to 50,000 feet on a bad day and count our blessings. Perspective simply reminds us that things could be a lot worse. Perspective on a bad day is simply understanding that we live in a world where half the world's population lives on less than $2.50 a day. Perspective on a bad day is reminding yourself of that Persian proverb which says, I cursed the fact I had no shoes until I saw the man who had no feet. Perspective is such a powerful word. Here's a great question on a bad day to bring on some perspective. Has anyone died here? So perspective is something I really want you to think about, and on a bad day, it will actually allow you to turn the lead into gold and really pivot.
Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.